The Adventures of Jonathan Wild, The Curious Case of the Ghost Ship. This is a fictional audio short story written and produced by Pierre Anthony and narrated by me, Andrew. The Arrival. Ravensbrück was a picturesque coastal town known for its charming cottages, bustling fish markets, and the ever-present scent of salt in the air. However, in recent weeks, the townsfolk had been gripped by a chilling tale. A ghost ship that appeared in the misty harbor at dawn and vanished by dusk, leaving behind a sense of unease and a string of unanswered questions. Jonathan Wild, the famed detective, had been summoned by the mayor, Harold Everett, to investigate this mysterious phenomenon. As his carriage approached the town, the morning fog still clung to the cobblestone streets, and the distant sound of seagulls echoed eerily. "Mr. Wild, welcome to Ravensbrück," Mayor Everett greeted him at the harbor. "I apologize for the urgent nature of my request, but the town is in a state of panic. The ghost ship has appeared every morning for the past week. We fear it is a bad omen." Jonathan nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the harbor. "I understand, Mayor. Please, tell me everything you know about this ship." Everett led Jonathan to the harbor master, a grizzled man named Captain Reynolds, who had been the first to see the apparition. "It's an old galleon, Mr. Wild," Reynolds explained, his voice rough from years of shouting commands at sea. "It appears out of the fog, silent as a grave, and just sits there. No crew, no movement, just there. Then, by evening, it's gone." Jonathan listened intently, jotting down notes. "Has anyone tried to board it?" Reynolds shook his head. "The townsfolk are too scared. They say it's cursed." The investigation begins. Determined to uncover the truth, Jonathan set up a base of operations at the Ravensbrück Inn. He spent his days interviewing townsfolk and gathering information about the ghost ship. The stories varied, but a few common threads emerged. The ship was an old, weathered galleon, and it appeared only in the early morning fog. Jonathan decided to visit the local historian, Ms. Margaret Hensley, who had an extensive knowledge of the town's maritime history. Her cottage was filled with books, maps, and artifacts from Ravensbrück's seafaring past. "Mr. Wild, I've been expecting you," she said, ushering him inside. "I believe I might have some information that could be of use." Margaret pulled out an old, leather-bound journal. This belonged to Captain Elias Hawke, a notorious pirate who sailed these waters centuries ago. His ship, the Sea Serpent, was lost in a storm, and legend has it that he cursed the ship before it sank, vowing to return one day to reclaim his treasure. Jonathan examined the journal, which detailed Captain Hawke's voyages and the fateful storm that had supposedly doomed the Sea Serpent. "This is fascinating, Miss Hensley. Could the ghost ship be the Sea Serpent?" Margaret nodded. "It's possible. The descriptions match, and the timing of the ship's appearance coincides with the anniversary of its sinking." The first encounter. Determined to see the ghost ship for himself, Jonathan rose early the next morning and made his way to the harbor. The fog was thick, reducing visibility to a few feet. As the sun began to rise, a dark silhouette emerged from the mist. The ghost ship was a haunting sight. Its tattered sails flapped in the wind, and its wooden hull, covered in barnacles, creaked ominously. Jonathan watched as it glided silently into the harbor, its presence both eerie and majestic. He boarded a small rowboat and cautiously approached the galleon. As he drew nearer, he noticed strange markings on the hull, runes and symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. He reached out to touch the ship, half expecting his hand to pass through it, but it felt solid and real. Jonathan climbed aboard, his senses on high alert. The deck was empty, and the only sounds were the creaking timbers and the distant cries of seagulls. He explored the ship, finding nothing but empty cabins and deserted passageways. As he reached the captain's quarters, he felt a sudden chill. The door creaked open, revealing a room filled with maps, charts, and a large wooden chest. Jonathan opened the chest, revealing a collection of old coins, jewels, and a rusted cutlass. His eyes were drawn to a piece of parchment at the bottom of the chest. It was a letter from Captain Hawk, detailing his curse and his vow to return. Jonathan realized that the ghost ship was tied to the captain's unfinished business. The hidden truth. Returning to the harbor, Jonathan shared his findings with Mayor Everett and Captain Reynolds. The ship is real, and it's tied to Captain Hawk's curse. We need to find a way to break the curse and put the captain's spirit to rest. Margaret Hensley suggested they perform a ritual to release the spirit. We need to return Captain Hawk's treasure to the sea, along with the letter he wrote. It's the only way to end the curse. As the sun set, Jonathan, Mayor Everett, Captain Reynolds, and Margaret gathered at the harbor. They loaded the treasure onto a small boat and set out to the ghost ship. The fog thickened as they approached, but Jonathan's determination was unwavering. They boarded the galleon and made their way to the captain's quarters. Margaret read from an old book of maritime rituals, her voice steady and clear. We return this treasure to the sea to release Captain Hawk's spirit and end his curse. As they cast the treasure and the letter into the water, a sudden gust of wind swept through the ship. The runes on the hull glowed brightly, and a ghostly figure appeared before them, Captain Elias Hawk. "Thank you," the captain's spirit whispered, his voice filled with relief. "My curse is lifted, and I can finally rest." With that, the ghost ship began to fade, its timbers dissolving into the mist. Jonathan and the others watched in awe as the ship vanished, leaving only the sound of the waves lapping against their boat. The aftermath. With the curse lifted and the ghost ship gone, Ravensbrook returned to its peaceful routine. The townsfolk celebrated the end of the haunting, and Jonathan Wild was hailed as a hero. "Mr. Wild, we can't thank you enough," Mayor Everett said, shaking Jonathan's hand. "You've brought peace to our town and laid a restless spirit to rest." Jonathan smiled modestly. "It was an honor to help. Every mystery has its own story, and it's our duty to uncover the truth." As he prepared to leave Ravensbrook, Jonathan reflected on the curious case of the ghost ship. It had tested his skills and his courage, but it had also reminded him of the power of history and the importance of resolving unfinished business. The adventures of Jonathan Wild continued, each new case bringing its own challenges and revelations. But the tale of the ghost ship in Ravensbrook remained one of his most memorable, a testament to the enduring power of legends and the human spirit. Rarely is there truth in urban legends, it is mostly just fiction.